then this is the alternate world we've reached. So like our own. Except the Axis lost the war. Which is why it's critical we understand it. But soon, we'll reach other worlds. And more beyond that, harvesting the intelligence of world after world, defeating everyone across the multiverse.
Every door out is a door in. Step up the sabotage program. I don't want any surprises coming through this portal.
I can't forget the day we met. Your eyes so blue, me piercing through. I can't forget the day we met. Your smile so bright, it made me swoon. Our love is like a summer's day, hot and endless in a magic way. Whenever I see you, all I can think is my summer love. Been waiting for you, my love. My summer love. Been waiting for you, my love. I can't forget the day we met.
How are you guys doing out there, Soth Romano? This is Titus Nietzsche Anderson for the Soth Romano podcast. How are you doing? We're going to talk about my enlightenment that happened 2 years ago. This is probably going to be one of our more exciting video casts that we have shot. And at the time that I filmed the enlightenment, I had mentioned that we were in a fractal pattern, and that my being isomorphic with Jesus in the Bible was incidental, and my battle with the devil, so to speak, was incidental, and the time to purge and so forth was a result of my witnessing people becoming increasingly educated and the need to shed some of the influences that people are still carrying around from the past. Since then, I have noticed over the last 2 years dozens more parallels, maybe not dozens, but a lot more, many more parallels and synchronicities. I had hesitated to list these for people before because I didn't want them to believe in the paranormal, or I didn't want people worshiping me or doing anything like that. I think you're going to be very pleased with this video cast. Just for your education, an isomorphic is something that you have in common with something that has happened before. A synchronicity is something that has substantial meaning to you that is coincidental. They're similar, but they're not both the same thing. What's neat about this is that I don't have to do anything in particular. I don't have to meditate. I don't smoke marijuana. I don't have lightning coming out of my fingertips. All of these things are occurring as a natural result of nature. And that is one of the most exciting things about this enlightenment. And I think you'll understand why. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to cover a few of the parallels with you and the synchronicities with you. And then when I come back, I'm going to give you a brand new interpretation of Matthew chapter 24. And I can't even believe I just said that, because this is a gaming company and this is about the furthest thing away I could think of to cover at my company. But it is relevant, so hang in there. I think you'll like it. The swastika belongs to the one named Aryan, as it has for millennia. It is a sign of honor, and for us, it is a sign of games. Okay, for quick reference, I'm going to list a few of the things that I am isomorphic with. I had started to do this about a year ago, but I hesitated to do it because I did not want to inspire belief in the paranormal or anything odd like that. I realized around the time of my enlightenment that I was isomorphic with Jesus Christ and his battle with the devil. That isn't anything that I did on purpose, it's just something that I happened to notice. Since then, I've noticed several more commonalities that I have with stories from a number of different texts, not just the Bible. So very quickly, I'm going to cover a few of them with you, but not all of them. If you want to see a list of them, then you can go to the website at sobrehumano.com/Christ means anointed. And even that list is not the total list, but it's some of the more salient examples. Okay, let's start with the Bible. In the Old Testament, you have the story of Cain killing Abel for God's approval. That relates to my own life with the sheriff in Hollywood supposedly killing me for control of Soap Romano as a company and as a fraternal order. The next story is one of Joseph. Joseph was sold into slavery by his family to Pharaoh, and he grew up working for Pharaoh, and as he did, he matured into a very bright person and impressed Pharaoh so much that he was made a general in his army. This relates to me because as a result of going homeless and maturing, I stopped my partying by 99%. I've always done good quality work in my background, but I've matured greatly over the last 16, 17 years. Now my video casts, my tweets, my blogs, and my website is supposedly visited by presidents of the United States, Fortune 500 CEOs, heads of state, celebrities, and other people internationally. Okay, the next example. Abraham telling Sodom and Gomorrah to stop the homosexual revelry or God would destroy it. He tried to find a few souls worth saving before it rained fire. This relates to me because as a part of Operation Bird Dog, I am constantly molested with homosexual innuendo, which has caused me to call for help several times to the authorities. And it has already rained fire in different parts of the earth. It has supposedly rained fire in the Middle East as a result of temperatures mixing with certain gases in the atmosphere. It could also be a metaphor for temperature spikes. This is relevant because these things have never happened before as a result of mankind's revelry. Okay, next we move on to Samson. Samson was taken into slavery by the Philistines, and he had superhuman strength. That superhuman strength was related to his long hair. And when the Philistines took him into custody, they cut his hair, and so he lost his strength. They also gorged his eyes out so that he became blind. Well, they left him incarcerated and they forgot about him. But after some time, they remembered that he was back there, and they decided to bring him out to toy with him. While he was brought out to be made a spectacle of, he asked the young man for the pillars or the walls so that he could lean against them. After finding the walls, and with his hair grown long again, he pushed the pillars apart and the walls apart, causing the entire structure to collapse upon all of them. This relates to me because as I've been trapped in homelessness, my own personal power has grown and my influence has also grown. Strangely enough, because of the use of cybernetics, I can hear voices in my head. I can feel people touch me. I'm touched on the genitals against my will, and I can feel touches on other parts of my body using cybernetics. I can also see holograms. This tells me that there's somebody there, but I cannot see who it is. Okay, let's move on to the New Testament. Jesus was born of his enlightenment, and after his baptism began his preaching work, and he knew that he was going to be betrayed by someone close to him and then turned over to the Romans for a sacrifice. This relates to me because as a result of my enlightenment, it has led me to my teaching for all people in all lands all over the world. However, I'm not here to be sacrificed. I am here to fight on all planes. Furthermore, one of the marks that a person can have, according to the Masons, I believe, is a pair of eyes that are asymmetrical. At least that's what they use in their magazine ads and movies and other places. My eyes are slightly asymmetrical from a small birth defect. And that, to me, implies someone who is quote-unquote born to be sacrificed. Okay, now we move on to Jesus returns to do battle with the devil. As some of you guys may know, I have reason to suspect that both my parents, my mom and my dad, may have been hurt and ultimately murdered by the sheriff's department in Phoenix. At least there's innuendo of that by Hollywood and some other people. My battle with the devil, with Freemasonry, with people who are into the occult, and so forth, it's not an act. I'm not an actor. I'm not doing this to impress you, or any of those things. It's a real fight against stupidity, against religion, against greed, and against displacement. Remember that I myself am supposedly scheduled to be sacrificed. So it turns into a real fight against ignorance and their greed to displace other people so that they can accumulate even more material possessions or more land. Okay, let's move on to Buddhism. The Buddha meditates on the causes of suffering, and then he comes up with his philosophy to address it. This relates to me because while I was walking to breakfast one morning, I was thinking about all of the problems and how they could be traced back to the Bible by some order of effect or by some chain of events. And I thought we should really get rid of those Bibles. And that is how the philosophy and the Purge seminar began to get pieced together. The Buddha is said to be born under auspicious circumstances. What that means is a person who finds enlightenment in lucky conditions or in lucky situations. Because of my being written into so many magazines, movies, and TV shows in metaphor, which was supposedly for a different purpose when they first started doing it 16 years ago, I'm in a position to do something and to attract a lot of attention as a result of the position that I'm in. A lot of men and women know what I know. They teach at university, they're physicians, they are people who are not miseducated to begin with. But for me, I'm just now uncovering all of this. But as a result of my particular enlightenment, it seems to be having a big effect on people all over the world. I'm seeing people in Europe wearing black and blue, Africa wearing black and blue, America wearing black and blue, and so forth. Okay, let's move on to, let's take an example from the Hindu. The Bhagavad Gita is an epic poem about a warrior and his education. Sophomano, the company, and myself, the person, are similar. It's about game theory and personal development. It's also very epic in its scale. All right, let's take an example from parapsychology. Parapsychology, Eliphas Levi and other occultists created a philosophy of compliments. I discovered compliments independent of Levi, and I have taught them before, as a way to decipher information, even to attain some degree of enlightenment. Let's take another example. Carl Jung. Carl Jung is a well-known parapsychologist. He defined a synchronicity as a coincidence that has substantial meaning and something that people should pay attention to. So I will give you a few examples of synchronicities here that cannot be choreographed. The first one is that I have tattoos on my upper right arm that are some 25 years old. The tattoo is of an angel, and then beneath it is a Japanese symbol for demon. Those are complements of each other. Number 2, the Aryan Brotherhood is anything but Aryan. They're actually the most disgraceful and shameless about remaining and how they fight and how they conduct business and so on. I learned less than a year ago, at the age of 51, that my first name Titus is translated from Latin as Aryan. In case you don't know what the significance of that is, it makes me their complement. Number 3, the satanic statue that was inspired by Levi has 2 children in front of it. The little girl is Latina and the young boy is African. Well, my mom is Latina and my dad is African. And they may have both died prematurely due to Satanism. Let's take one more. 2 years ago, I created this little verse for our team. It says, "The colors of the night are the colors of our fight, black and blue." The black and blue comes from an extension rod that I used to carry in Phoenix, Arizona when I worked as a window washer. That's what I used to reach the windows with. Well, one evening while I was working on a paperback novel, I realized that the satanic group called the Golden Dawn has colors that are the opposite of Sobrehumanos. Not only are their colors the opposite, but their time of day is opposite. Okay, let's move on to... let's take one from Hollywood real quick. Okay, Hollywood has its own fable that's written into several different comics. It's the same story in several different movies. What happens is your parents are murdered by the Joker, and then you are an orphan. What you do from that moment forward is you start training to become a superhero and to go back and to fight the Joker as Batman, as Superman, as whatever. I've listed a number of movies on the website that use this pattern. Same thing has happened to me with insinuations that both my parents have been murdered, and with their attempted recruitment of me to go to work for... I'm sorry, hang on. Sorry about that. The same thing has happened to me with their attempted recruitment of me to go to work for Hollywood or to go to work for the United States of America. I believe these things to be con artistry and contempt for the orphans. The super weapon that I would create to defeat the Joker in my own life would be Sobrehumano, the company, and its mission and so on. Okay, so there's some examples of the things that I'm isomorphic with, as well as some synchronicities. In the Bible, the great E666 is construed by almost everyone to mean the United States of America, and the occult symbolism is everywhere in Washington, And Freemasons are openly Satan worshipers in private. So is Hollywood. In the book of Revelations, the drunken harlot riding on the back of the wild beast is defined as the false churches. And I had mentioned that Hollywood would also have to be included in that definition, because they are wielding power given to them by the government like somebody who's intoxicated. In the Bible, they are destroyed by Jesus and his angels. And on paper, I have, without trying to, destroyed white supremacy. There is no such thing as white supremacy. Their desirability and profitability has reached its due. Whites are easily destroyed by a fair marketplace, fair governance, a fair social space, democratization of police equipment, and transparency. Okay, I think that's going to wrap it up for this section. And now I'm going to give you an interpretation, a new one, of Matthew chapter 24. All right, did you guys enjoy that sequence? It's pretty cool. So as you can see, I have a number of things in common with a number of past stories and works from different books. It's not just the Bible or the Upanishads or the Sutras, but it's from several different things. And I thought that was kind of neat. Also, the number of synchronicities that have happened or have been happening since the Enlightenment has been increasing. And I had a feeling that it would. It's not because I'm meditating or smoking marijuana or anything like that. Like I said, all I have to do is just be myself, and this is where I find myself. These are the shoes that I find myself in. So I wanted to cover something with you that happened to me about a week ago. About a week ago, or thereabouts, I was about to go to sleep, and I was looking at my smartphone. And on my smartphone was Hurricane Ida, and the broadcaster had mentioned that Hurricane Ida was a result of climate change. And I remember thinking to myself that if that were true, that sort of reminds me of the story about Noah and how the floods came after he warned them that the floods would be coming. So from there, I went to Matthew chapter 24, just out of curiosity, to see about some of the predictions that were there. I'm going to give you now the highlights from Matthew chapter 24, okay? Matthew chapter 24, verse 3, the apostle asked Jesus what would be the signs of his second coming and of the end of the world. At verse 5, he says to beware of false Christs. At verse 6, he says there will be wars, reports of wars. There will be famines, pestilences, earthquakes. At verse 7, he says this will be the age of sorrows. At verse 9, he says that you will be afflicted, and they will hate you, and they will kill you. At verse 11, he again warns of false prophets. And at verse 21, he warns of the Great Tribulation. And at verse 24, he warns of false Christs giving signs again. And at verse 27, that the Son of Man would be arriving like lightning, appearing from the east to the west. At verse 34, he says, this generation will not pass away before these things have taken place. At verse 37, he says, as in the days of Noah, so shall be the coming of the Son of Man. All right, this is kind of difficult for me to talk about once in a while because it sounds kind of not self-aggrandizing, but it makes me really self-conscious. But I will cover this stuff with you anyway. So what I want you to do, if you have a pen and paper handy, is to write down the following things. I want you to write down false Christ. I want you to write down signs by false Christ. I want you to write down famines. I want you to write down pestilences. I want you to write down earthquakes. I want you to write down great tribulation. I want you to write down the age of sorrows. And I want you to write down the Son of Man's return. Now, I want you to take a look at that list, and with the exception of the last one, the Son of Man's return, what do you see that all of the aforementioned have in common with each other? Take a look at that list and look carefully and see if you notice anything. You probably won't remember, but when I recorded the Purge seminar 2 years ago, in the first video, I told you who some of my influences were. One of them was Dr. David Hawkins. Now, Dr. David Hawkins uses complementarities in his work. That is not where I got my material from on complements. I had forgotten about that, and complements only came up within the last 12 months. If you follow the tweets, if you follow the blogging, you'll know that it came up just recently, maybe a year and a half, somewhere thereabouts. But it didn't have anything to do with Dr. Hawkins. Dr. Hawkins used to teach about contrasting truth versus falsehood. Look at your list again and tell me if you notice anything strange about those items that I've given you to list. See anything interesting? They are all fake, and they are all man-made. I'm going to give you 7 different things. One of my talents is pattern detection, which I told you before. First thing that you might notice is that they are fake. They are man-made. Number 2, they are anomalies. They've never happened before on Earth. Pestilences would be things like COVID, a man-made pestilence. For example, if COVID turns out to be man-made, it could be flu, it could be any number of things, or any interpretations like that. The floods are man-made, and as a result of the hurricanes. The hurricanes, if it turns out to be the result of climate change, are also fake. They're not from nature, they are because of man. The famines would also be man-made. They're not real famines, they're famines because of politics and warfare. The false Christ is a man-made Christ. It's not the real Christ. The signs and great wonders that he does are coming from his ego. Most likely that would be a pastor or somebody who's using cybernetics to read your mind, or to predict the future, or to tell you about things in your past. And even some popular seminar speakers, if you go back far enough into the 90s, were doing that on stage for people. And that was to influence them to follow them and to like them. The earthquakes could be correlated with, excuse me, I'm sorry, I'm bothered all the time. Things like flash floods and mudslides, or the detonation of bombs and things like that. The Great Tribulation would be people's terror. and that's also man-made. That one's not fake, but it is man-made, and so forth. So that's number 2. Now I'm going to give you the third one. Or I'm sorry, number 1 was fake, they were man-made. Number 2 is they were anomalies that have never happened before. Number 3, they were signs of his return. All of those aforementioned are. Number 4, and this is the one that's going to send you back to your library to do a lot of thinking. These are stories based on fables. To the best of my knowledge, Jesus Christ never existed before. And whoever wrote these fables and stories wasn't basing them on anything. There isn't any way to connect climate change with floods, or floods with climate change, and climate change from CO2 emissions, and CO2 emissions from warfare, or the burning of fuels, or criminal mismanagement, or wanton waste and wanton consumption. Number 5, these are all concurrent with each other and occurring simultaneously within the same time period. And number 6, they are all man-made, but they are all also traceable back to the great beast, 666. Think about it. All of those things on that list, including the provocation of the Son of Man's return, are occurring because of the great beast 666 and his misbehavior. Both the false Christ and the real one are provoked by 666, but the false Christ is receiving a commission to do what he's doing. He's an actor or a magician, not the real Christ. The age of sorrows, as it is said in verse 7. If you follow my Twitter feed, I've got a lot of vitriol for white Caucasian males who are white supremacists at the moment, because they are causing extraordinary harm to my life and to my family and to my company. Just 3 or 4 days ago, I had mentioned that nobody makes more people cry than white Caucasian males. Think about it. Who's made people cry in Japan, China, Africa, South America, Mexico, America? I don't think there's any other group of people anywhere in the world who have had, who've made more people languish in anguish or confusion or anger or sadness than white supremacists, than people in America and the people who control them in the UK, or something like that, however that works. So that's going to conclude what I had to say to you guys. And I want you guys to see this video as entertainment and something to think about. Do not take this as a sign to do anything rash. It doesn't mean jump out the window. It doesn't mean sell all of your earthly possessions. It doesn't mean that you need to follow me around. It doesn't mean any of those things. Think about it. Think about your life. Think about what you're doing. Think about the time period that we're living in, and your behavior within that larger system. That's what spirituality means. It just means subjecting yourself and making yourself a healthy part of a larger system. And we all have different roles to play. So one of the things Dr. David Hawkins used to say is, if you're a postal worker, be the best postal worker that you can be. And if you're a waitress, be the best waitress that you can be. And if you're a president, then be the best president that you can be. That's the ecosystem, and it's very simple. That's an example from your profession or from your work, but it applies to you whether you're a student, a mom, a parent, a citizen, or whatever else that you might be doing. With regards to the purging, I want you guys to purge when it's safe for you to. Some communities are deeply religious, and they have been for a very, very long time. So in some cases, they will need some mentoring and some psychotherapy to be shepherded out of those, to be shepherded out or away from the past, those old things. I hate to see people born into a cage. I hate to see religion or family or the government take away people's civil rights and their dignity and their will. So one rule of thumb that you may want to take into consideration is to take a look and see if your traditions are in conflict with or in some way retarding what is natural science and natural will of a human being. If the book is that old from the past, then chances are it's probably an error. It probably has good observations about human nature, but as far as some of the doctrines, they can sometimes be very harmful and they can create a lot of mental health problems. So it's something to consider. And if you need help in that regards, I am trying to get my company off the ground and running. I'm trying to get it away from Hollywood and the FBI and the Sheriff's Department or whatever cauldron of people there are who are attempting to hold me down and to exploit me and to steal from myself, my family, my company, and from what everybody else wants and needs worldwide. These people aren't thinking about anything else except for themselves. And they make me violently angry every single day. I hate them so much, you have no idea. Anyway, I think that's going to wrap it up for us for this video cast. I hope you liked it. I hope I gave you something to think about. Feel free to support the mission and support the company. It's not a religious company, but it's a company that is about gaming, it's about life play, it's about gameplay, and all of those issues that can affect your life. Hopefully it will make you better. It's the birthplace of our new institutions, our new teachers, and our new books one day. So hopefully we'll all get to see that. All right, so that's something exciting and something to look forward to, and we can make improvements on what was once here. Maybe it won't be here anymore one day. And that could be the greatest blessing in the world for our planet and for the health of each other, is to get rid of some of those old heuristics. Okay? All right. I'm going to wish you guys well. Have a great day. Bye-bye.